Good morning, traders, and welcome to Phoenix Blue's morning update. Today is Thursday, the 26th of January. My name is Nishal Patel, and I'm going to be giving you a brief synopsis of what's happened on the market today. First things first, what we're going to do is pay attention to the big announcements for today, or the big news releases. We've got a 9:30 announcement on GDP coming out from Britain. That's a quarterly announcement, as we can see on the screen right now. We've also got meetings from Eurogroup, and that is going to be all day, so we could have snippets of news releases being released from the media at any point during the day. And lastly, we're concluding with the 1:30 announcement. Remember, this is in GMT. So it's London time here for the fortnightly unemployment claims coming out on the greenback. We did have some announcements yesterday. We did have figures out on CPI on the Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar. The Australian dollar quarter on quarter, the CPI was slightly down, so it didn't help the Australian dollar too much there. But at the same time, despite the fact it was down, it was just marginally down, so really didn't have too much of a bearing on the Australian dollar, as to speak. And the New Zealand dollar was slightly up on the CPI quarter on quarter as well. Again, very much the same effect. We did have some other data out, and that's what I'm going to turn my attention to now. So in fact, what we're going to do is move straight to the charts, and what we're having a look at right now is WTI on the weekly time frame. As we can see on this chart, WTI has started its ascent, has been climbing above that 50 level. We've noticed that over the last few months. Once it's broken that 50 and then the 52, has stayed above the 52 zone for much part of this year, as we can see on this weekly time frame, and was climbing again off the dollar weakness that we've seen. And if I flick over to a daily time frame, you should be able to see that very clearly. No doubt, many of you will be seeing this. But just like with the rest of our commodities out there, with a weakening dollar, what we've seen is an increase in price on various commodities, in particularly this one. But this one got capped yesterday from a news release on oil inventories out from the States side. We obviously saw a surplus out there. So what we had is we did have production still rearing on the final quarter of 2016, but we had an unseasonal reduction in consumption over that last quarter, so that didn't really help. So that's ended up with with inventories larger or fuller, I should say, than what they've previously been, and that has really staggered or put a cap on how much this particular chart has risen. And you should see the same across the board when we're talking about the weakening of the US dollar here across many of the commodities. And as we're talking about that, let's flick over to a few of our main charts. What we'll do, have a quick look at right now. Just have a looking at the euro, seeing how the euro is performing right now. Looking at this daily time frame, we can see the euro is literally stayed glued to that 100 moving average, or the 100-day moving average, as we're looking at a daily time frame on this chart over the last 3 or 4 days. Has literally come up to it and tested it a number of times, almost in this area of consolidation, I would say, as we do have a ceiling, and it looks like it's not going any further lower than this area down there. I'm just going to point this area out, which should actually coincide with some of the highs that we've had back towards the tail end of January, I should say towards mid-Jan, or the start of Jan, in fact. And what we've got is these lows coming in and around that 1.0716 area, so floating well above 1.07 right now. To be precise, today right now is floating at 1.0739 circa. So literally has been rising and still taking advantage of that weakness on the USD. Flicking over to the Japanese yen right now. Again, this is a weekly time frame, and we can see that the Japanese yen has come down, has tested an area in and around that 112.50 mark, which was a key area for many traders, and has floated back up to that 113, high 113s, and just sitting just below that right now. 113.70 odd right now on the yen. So haven't seen any bounce of dollar strength. Obviously, this week is really important in the fact that we just had the inauguration of Trump on Friday. The markets are figuring out where they're going, and we are seeing a transition of monies over to the stock markets. Remember, let's not forget, it's also earnings season, so we've got a lot of data coming out, in particularly on the equity side. That's obviously having a knock-on effect onto the investors and deciding where they should be pushing their money. Obviously, the guys on our Pro-Trade group will be very aware of this. Going straight over to cable right now. Cable right now is floating at 1.26670 and floating quite high right now, as we can see on this weekly time frame. Again, almost double bottoming on this weekly time frame and coming up close to its neckline. Remember, if we see a break of that, we could see an absolute reversal, as it was in a downtrend, and we would be seeing a break of that neckline. I do have a fib fan here, and we've got a 382 intersection of the 382 potentially prior to it breaking that neckline. So I would like to see what happens by the end of this week, in particularly looking forward to trading in the markets at the start of early next week. So we've seen the dollar not really gain any momentum, still weakening off. There's still a sell-off on the dollar, and that in turn is driving a lot of our majors in the opposite direction to what was previously trending. And the correction, by the looks of it, is more than a correction. Definitely changing opinions of many investors out there, and we're seeing a reflection of that in our charts. As always, guys, if there's any questions that you might have in regards to the charts that we've had a look at over the course of this week, feel free to send us an email at info@phoenixblue.co.uk. Alternatively, drop us a call on our telephone number that's provided on our website, and any other questions we'll be happy to answer. Until next time, guys, happy trading. Goodbye.